Would America actually organize to do something to stop gun violence if they could see the damage that guns do to human bodies? Just like many African Americans became even more organized and outraged after Emmitt Till's mother took that brave stance of showing his body in that open casket funeral in Chicago. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. This whole mass shooting thing, of course, you know, after the shooting in Boulder, Colorado, day before yesterday, and then a few days before that in Georgia, there has been a renewed push to do something about gun violence in America, but it's still, I mean, you still had Ted Cruz basically filibustering this yesterday on the floor of the Senate. You had John Kennedy, the congressman from Louisiana, talking about drunk drivers. I mean, it literally, he was like, well, we got drunk driving as a problem too. Why don't we do something about that? Well, John, actually, we did. We require people to get a driver's license so that their car, they know how to run their car. We don't require people to get a shooter's license. We require people to have liability insurance for their car. We don't require shooters, gun owners to have liability insurance. We require cars to have seat belts. We don't require guns to have safety locks. I mean, even the Republican arguments like Senator Kennedy's argument, like, drunk driving problem, just disintegrate into BS. Here's what I think needs to be done. And I'm going to lay this out. If you want the links and the deep dive and the background information and the links to anything I'm saying here, they're all over, excuse me, on the article that I published today at hartmannreport.com, which is essentially this. Back in 1955, down in Mississippi, a young black man named Emmitt Till was visiting from Chicago, which is where he lived. A white woman claimed that he whistled at her. Her husband and his brother, as I recall, maybe his cousin, kidnapped Emmitt Till, took him out, beat him brutally, tied him to a 50-pound cotton gin fan after they had made him drag it across up to the river. And then after they beat him to death, turned his face into pulp, threw his broken body into the river, where it was later retrieved. His mother, Mamie Bradley, made an extraordinarily courageous decision when his body was brought back to Chicago and said, we're going to have an open casket funeral. I want people to see what they did to my child, to my baby. Jet magazine sent a photographer who took a picture of Emmitt Till in his casket. That picture went viral, particularly across Black America, for lack of a better phrase, across the black community in the United States. But it also broke into the white mainstream back. I mean, keep in mind, this is 1955. There were literally no black people on television except as criminals. But it not only invigorated the civil rights movement, and does to this day. It's that coffin, Emmitt Till is buried, but the original coffin is now a centerpiece at the Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C., which is just, by the way, once you've got your COVID vaccines, you need to get there and check this thing out. It's extraordinary. And our friend Joe Madison from SiriusXM Urban View, I think it's channel 129, every morning from 6 to 10 a.m., helped raise that money to make that thing happen, among others. I mean, there's a lot of great people who worked on that. But anyhow, those pictures, or that picture, made real for many Americans the horrors of white violence against black people, which have been going on forever in this country. But the old saying, a picture tells 1,000 words. There's such a reality to this. You'd think in America, after 7 shootings and 7 mass shootings in the last 7 days, that America would have some sense of what this means. I mean, we've all heard the words Newtown and Stoneman Douglas and Las Vegas, and we know intellectually what that means. But have you ever seen a picture of a pile of bodies that have been ripped apart, their heads exploded by 223 caliber bullets, the things that are fired out of AR-15s? I mean, there's a reason why this guy shot 10 people, and they're all dead. No survivors. No wounded. These are weapons of war. But in any case, back to my question, have you seen the pictures? No, of course not. Because the American media doesn't show those kinds of pictures. And there's some good reasons for that. But back in the 1980s, the anti-abortion movement made the decision, in part egged on by partisans in the Reagan administration, to start carrying around posters that showed bloody aborted fetuses. It turned out actually some of those pictures were actually pictures of stillbirths, miscarriages, or medical crises that mothers had had. But it didn't matter. They were bloody pictures, and they're using those to this day. But what happened when they started using those in the 80s was that by the 90s, even people who were in favor of a woman having the right to choose an abortion, like Bill Clinton, were saying, well, yeah, abortion, yeah, they should be legal, safe, and rare. If you talk to people in the abortion rights movement, they will tell you that when they started using that picture, that was the moment when, quote, abortion became real for Americans. Think about that picture back in 1972 of Phan Thi Kim Phuc. She's referred to as Napalm Girl. She was 9 years old, running down the street with a bunch of other little kids in rural Vietnam, having ripped the clothes off her back because they were on fire from napalm. That picture in 1972 helped turn the tide completely. I mean, even the hardcore right-wing Republican pro-war bunch, after that picture went around the world and won the Pulitzer Prize, that was the point at which the Vietnam War was really and truly ended. I mean, the actual end came 2 years ago when Jerry Ford ended it, but there you go. Now, there are some, so I think that, we should be showing at least a picture of the violence of these shooters. Now, this is going to be a very controversial thing, and there are really legitimate reasons to not sensationalize violence, to not satisfy morbid curiosity, and concerns about warping young people's minds or triggering PTSD for people who are survivors of violence, and yet pictures show reality in a way that words can't do. Our mass shootings in the United States were kicked off in 1966 with Charles Whitman. That was August 1st, 66. And then we had a string of killings that happened during the Reagan-Bush administration, 84, San Ysidro McDonald's, Edmond, Oklahoma post office in 86, the Luby's Cafeteria in 91 in Killeen, Texas. I mean, we used, I can tell you, I worked in advertising for years. I used to teach advertising and marketing through the American Marketing Centers. The NRA's biggest fear is that these pictures start showing up. That's their biggest nightmare. And we did this with tobacco. We showed pictures of people who half their jaw had been eaten away. We showed those pictures in the 90s. And it changed public opinion. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, I don't know if that group specifically, but we did this with drunk driving. We showed, not necessarily the bodies, but the bloodied remains of mashed up cars. Now, this isn't something that we should just throw up on some website or in some newspaper. Major American journalism groups, print, television, web-based stuff, they need to get together and decide which pictures to publish and how to publish them in a way that maximizes their impact while minimizing the probability that they will produce trauma or trigger PTSD in other people. This has to be done carefully.